What's up guys? Before we get into today's review of Ben 10 Alien Force, I wanted to quickly let you all know that I've launched a new YouTube channel. It's called WTP Productions and it's all about Pokemon. Pokemon is probably the one thing I love more than animated shows from the late 90s and early 2000s, so I'm pretty excited to start turning that passion into awesome videos. There's going to be reviews of the Pokemon games in the same style as my reviews on this channel, in-depth video essays about Pokemon history, mysteries and unsolved questions, and even a podcast dedicated to reviewing every episode of the Pokemon anime. If any of this sounds interesting to you, I'd love if you checked out the channel and subscribed if you like what you see. I've taken up enough of your time though, so let's get started on what you're really here for, a review of Ben 10 Alien Force. My name's Brandon and this is Cartoon Network Video Game History, a show where I take a look back on all of the video games based on Cartoon Network franchises and retrospectively review them. With the Code Lyoko series in the rearview mirror, it's time to move on to greener pastures. This week I'm reviewing a game I'm genuinely excited for, Ben 10 Alien Force. The first Ben 10 game, Protector of Earth, was a very solid title and is still one of the best Cartoon Network games I've played. Ben 10 Alien Force hit shelves on October 8, 2008 for the Wii, PlayStation 2, PSP and Nintendo DS. The DS version was again developed by First Playable Productions, however we had a change of developers for the other versions. High Voltage Software developed Protector of Earth. They've proven to be by far the most consistent developer that Cartoon Network has worked with, but unfortunately they were replaced for the follow-up. Instead, we have Monkey Bar Games at the helm of Alien Force. Licensed games were their bread and butter, having worked on titles based on Dora the Explorer, Curious George, and Flushed Away. This wouldn't be the last time they worked with Cartoon Network either, returning for Ben 10 Galactic Racing in 2011. Monkey Bar Games were a subsidiary of Vicious Cycle Software, who were responsible for Ben 10 Omniverse and Adventure Time Finn and Jake Investigations. Once again, the publisher was D3, who published pretty much every Ben 10 game in existence. Critically, like pretty much every game I've reviewed so far, Alien Force was a flop. Across the different versions it averaged about a 5.1 out of 10. The only major outlet that reviewed the game was IGN, who gave it a disappointing 4 out of 10. This isn't great news, but I've disagreed with reviewers in this series many times. Fingers crossed Ben 10 Alien Force isn't a letdown. Ben 10 Alien Force is definitely a sequel to Protector of Earth. While it doesn't necessarily carry on the narrative of the first game, which was actually ended on a cliffhanger, this game definitely carries the same spirit. Monkey Bar Games would be forgiven for starting with a clean slate and trying to come up with their own idea of what a Ben 10 game is. However, they've clearly acknowledged the great foundation that High Voltage Software laid. In fact, this template works so well that the PS4 game based on the reboot, which I reviewed a while back, actually plays extremely similar. As a result, those who played Protector of Earth will be right at home here. Literally all of the controls are still the same. You've got your light and heavy attacks, a special attack, R1 allows you to transform, and there are separate meters for your health and how long you can stay in your alien form. No complaints from me on this decision, the format worked back then and it still works now. An unfortunate carryover from Protector of Earth is the limited alien selection. Again, you only have 5 aliens to choose from. Swampfire and Humungosaur are in both versions of the game, while the DS also got Goop, Echo Echo and Chromastone, with home consoles getting Big Chill, Spider Monkey and Jet Ray. I just don't understand why they didn't include a lot more aliens. One of the biggest appeals of the show is that Ben can transform into so many different aliens. The only reason I can come up with for why there are so few is that the length of the game couldn't support so many. Alien Force is actually shorter than Protector of Earth, it's around 4 hours long, so there are actually more aliens than hours of gameplay. This is also the only Ben 10 game that doesn't feature any of the original aliens, which meant I had absolutely no idea who any of these creatures were. Despite this, I had to say that all 5 aliens easily won me over by the end of the game. While I certainly have my favourites, which you can probably tell by the majority of my footage featuring Jet Ray, each alien is fun to play as. I think the only one I actively disliked was Spider Monkey. He's super quick, but with the trade-off of being incredibly frail. I found that taking just a couple of hits with Spider Monkey sent me into low health, so it honestly wasn't worth using him. Each alien becomes much more enjoyable to use as you increase their power. Again, just like Protector of Earth, we have an upgrade system. Defeating enemies still yields you little yellow orbs that fill a meter. Once filled, you get to choose one of your aliens to upgrade. Aliens are a little boring fresh out of the box, but when you've unlocked every combo, they are a blast to use. Taking down enemies with Jet Ray's multitude of moves never got boring. I would actually say that combat feels a little more fluid here. It's definitely a step up and gets a big tick from me. You can actually play this game in co-op if you want, which is kinda neat. It feels like they designed the enemy encounters around co-op, as so many enemies just come off as sponges that take forever to kill. Even the weaker enemies still take way too many hits to dispose of. Despite giving you the option to choose which alien you want to upgrade, this never ultimately matters. You're guaranteed to have upgraded every alien to the max 75% of the way through the game, rendering any interesting implementation of the upgrade system useless. Another thing that returns from Protector of Earth is the drip feeding of aliens, however this time there's no justification for it. In Protector of Earth, they at least provided a narrative reason, which explained Ben's Omnitrix wasn't working at full capacity due to some malicious tampering. As a result, you spend the game trying to fix it up. Here though, you simply just randomly unlock the ability to use a new alien periodically. It is a little nitpicky, but I would have liked some sort of reason for why Ben just isn't using all of his aliens. Some aliens also offer unique traversal abilities. Swampfire can burn down hay, Big Chill can glide on gusts of air, Spider Monkey can climb certain walls and use its spider abilities to go full Spider-Man, while Humongousaur can smash down obstacles in your way. It doesn't add a whole lot, but it helps set each alien even further apart from one another. Also, Big Chill moves around by doing the Naruto run, thought I should just point that out. Early on they advertised that I could return to a specific area to use an alien's ability to nab a collectible, but that was the only time I encountered something like that. Maybe I was completely blindfolded the entire time, but for the life of me I can't name another area where this happened. One of the biggest differences between this game and Protector of Earth is the fact that you can play as Kevin and Gwen. These two characters couldn't be more night and day. Kevin is just horrendous to play as. He moves sluggishly, he doesn't seem to have a very deep set of moves, and defeating enemies takes way too long. Kevin has the ability to harness the power of the elements, covering himself in wood, metal, or stone. This could have offered an insanely unique gameplay experience where you get to utilise several vastly different elements. Instead, what I found was that Kevin would get a new costume and then proceed to be exactly the same. To top it all off, the few Kevin sections in the game are ridiculously long. They slow the game to a crawl and made me beg for Ben to return. On the other hand, Gwen is a joy to play as. I was dreading her gameplay after experiencing Kevin, but to my surprise they actually did something interesting with her. They utilised her psychic powers perfectly here to make something that is different from Ben's aliens, but still fun at its core. Gwen is weak, but has a special shield to protect her, which gets drained in the same way Ben's alien ability meter does. Additionally, you can also use her psychic abilities to go on the attack, which also drains the meter. This means you have to play a balancing act of attack and defense, which I really enjoyed. And most importantly, Gwen has a bunch of interesting combos that make combat fun. Honestly, playing as Gwen was pretty much on par with using the aliens, which is probably the highest compliment I can give it. I've been mostly positive about the game up until this point, but now it's time for me to drill down into the serious flaws on display. Firstly, I've got to address the visuals. In-game, they're fine. They're nothing to write home about, but they're solid, and the wide-ranging colour palette for environments ensures your eyes are always looking at something visually interesting. However, the cutscenes were a whole different story. The style used for the actual cutscenes just doesn't work. I guess they couldn't afford to get proper animation in the show's style, so they just went with 3D. They definitely missed the mark. I hate the way characters look, and it really drags down the cutscenes. This is a real shame too, as the game definitely doesn't skimp on the story. It's nothing spectacular, but real effort has been made here. Not only are there lots of cutscenes, but some of them are quite lengthy too. They weren't phoning it in, so it's a bummer that they missed the mark with the visual style. Somehow even worse is the in-game cutscenes. These are of a staggeringly low quality. Many times characters wouldn't even move their mouths while talking. It just made me wonder why they even bothered with these cutscenes.
You and your friends have served your purpose. I have what I need, and soon it will be in the hands of my associates.
The hybrid? I thought you were smarter than that. As soon as they get what they want, they'll eliminate you along with everyone else. They think we're all inferior beings.
They never really amounted to anything of interest, so they could have disposed of them and nothing would have been lost from the final product. The narrative also lacks a bit of focus. You join up with Gorvin, who was initially your friend, but in the most obvious reveal of all time, it actually turns out that he's bad. Gorvin has been working with the hybrid, but once you have a boss battle with him, he just disappears from the rest of the game and the hybrid becomes the focus. However, the hybrid are introduced so late in the game that they kind of feel like an afterthought. The way it's set out just doesn't feel cohesive, but I do like that they went for something a little more original than Protector of Earth's "oh no, Ben has to fight all the famous villains" story. My issues didn't just stop with the game's story and cutscenes though. Levels drag on for much longer than they need to a lot of the time. There's no reason a game in this genre should have levels that take like 40 minutes to beat, it just becomes way too repetitive. I would have much preferred more levels that were shorter, rather than making me play through the exact same environment for 30 plus minutes. I also think Protector of Earth had much more exciting environments. Because that game was basically a road trip across America, you got to fight through a bunch of landmarks and distinct locales. This made practically every level memorable, while the ones here are a bit forgettable. My biggest issue with the game is the insane insistence on including platforming sections. While combat is designed really well, character movement is not even remotely suited for platforming sections. Sure, throw in some basic jumps, that would have been fine, but here there are sections that require actual precision. This is an example of a developer needing to stay in its lane and not branch out too much. Finally, the boss battle with the ghost freak looking dude might actually be the worst boss battle I've ever played. In the previous game, boss battles were heavily focused on quick time events. This game does away with that, and it's a positive for the most part. This particular boss battle is the exception. In this fight, you have to press a bunch of buttons to alter the room's gravity. This requires you to change out of your alien form and into Ben. The constant changing is incredibly clunky, and the controls really fall to pieces here. You have to press circle to activate a switch, but it was always a dice roll on whether it would actually activate the switch, or just force me to do a safety roll like some parkour nut. I would literally completely stop as Ben, not touching anything else, and then finally click circle, and he still would roll sometimes. It was just far more frustrating than it needed to be.
Hybrid have attacked. Grandpa Max has disappeared, and it's time for Ben to battle again. The hit TV show on Cartoon Network is now a video game. The Omnitrix has been upgraded. Play as new aliens on your favorite game systems.
Overall, I definitely wouldn't say Ben 10 Alien Force is a bad game. However, I would say that it doesn't manage to top Protector of Earth. Being so heavily based on the formula that game created actually hurts it a little. Alien Force does improve on the formula in some ways, but it also brings with it a fresh set of negatives, as well as keeping some of the less enjoyable elements. The new positives it brings just aren't enough to offset this, but I would definitely recommend this game to people who enjoyed Protector of Earth. A lot of effort has been put into this. Heck, in the bonus material section, there's a little making of video that goes behind the voice recording process for the game, which is by far the most interesting bonus material we've seen so far. Ben 10 Alien Force isn't as good as I wanted it to be, but there is still plenty on offer for fans, and I think the developers can definitely hold their heads high.